We're out of practice.
Okay, where was I? There.
Calling the meeting to order.
I would like to call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency for Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. And I have an announcement to start the meeting, which is Board Member Todd Brewer will be attending the January 8th, 2025 meeting via video conference due to an extraordinary circumstance as outlined in Section 4E of the organization's public meeting video conference policy. This determination was made by me as chair of the meeting. Mr. Brewer will be attending at a location that is not open to the public and thus will not count towards quorum, but will be able to vote on any motions on the floor. And Todd, thank you for attending. I know you're not feeling well, so.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, but I appreciate it. Proceeding to first order of business, we have privilege of the floor. I do have a written comment. I think I'll start by reading that in and then go to the in-person comments. This is from Amanda Kirchkestner. Hello, I want to submit comments today for the TCIDA. I know it's after 9 a.m. Any decisions made will establish precedents for any future decisions regarding abatement extensions and rule changes. I know the state is lax in its oversight responsibilities. The state's recommendations largely go unheard, it seems. That means the responsibility falls squarely in the laps of those sitting at the table when these discussions are had and these votes are cast. The community was largely opposed to the convention center at Asteri, as well as exclusively senior development at Library Place. I wonder where we'd be sitting if those voices had been heard the first time around. Please reflect on the entire depth of the records of any and all projects who are asking for extensions or changes to their agreements. Listen to the public hearings, read the comments from start to finish. Good government means doing your homework and taking the needs, perspectives, and concerns of all parties into consideration and account. We can do better. Thank you for your time. Amanda Kirchkestner. Okay. Next up, we have Teresa Ault. And I will not read the rules, as you are fully aware of them.
As an unofficial member of the IDA
That's
board.
right.
Hello, yes, I'm Teresa Ault of 206 Eddy Street in Collegetown. The BVSHF request reminds me of some comments I have heard from others, that the IDA's offers of tax subsidies encourage inadequately capitalized developers to grasp onto projects that they can't really afford to develop, thus blocking the way to others who might have projects that they can afford. If your dire scenarios of nothing getting built without your help were true, nothing would be built in Collegetown. As for the Cinemapolis application, well, I think that's a community cultural enterprise that deserves support, though I wish the support did not come in the form of parking. Some of the problems that you deal with are way bigger than the IDA. For example, Library Place. Well, this is where you get when the dominant superstition is that housing to be any good must be private and for profit. I'd suggest that when housing is needed, it should be publicly or cooperatively owned, maybe not for profit. Take a look at the model of Vienna, Austria.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Peter Wiseker. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Hi, I'm Peter Wiseker. I live in the city of Ithaca. I just have a few points to make. First, I see the Peak Made project really quite differently than my colleague Teresa does. And I'd ask you not to give them the adjustments that they seek, but for actually a very opposite reason. The corporation actually is very, very, very large and can afford the extra monies it seeks from the county's taxpayers. We've been through this before, for those of you who've been members for a while. They have assets under management about the size of the city of Ithaca's budget, $2.5 billion, or their investment partner does, Blue Vista. And despite Ms. McDaniel's wish, expressed more than once when such issues arise, that the size of the firm is a non-issue, I feel it should be an issue. If you have to draw the line somewhere on where to forego tax revenue and when not to, doing so for firms of this size is as good a place as any to forego giving additional breaks. For PeakMade, if you seek to compromise, I'd have you agree to the shift in dates of the abatement. That's it. However, if you do so, please ensure the property has been reassessed based on the sale price and that PeakMade pays 100% of the property tax due based on that updated value for this past year. But I'm asking you, please do not accede to letting the tax abatement transfer in the event of bankruptcy without having PeakMade come back to the IDA. That's not something you'd agree to in any other situation. The rules have been clarified for that not that long ago, and there's no reason you should do so when the richest firm to come to town in a long while asks for it. After all, it just makes it easier for the company to walk away from the project and the debt it uses to leverage it. If, as I think you may well do, you decide to offer them that concession and give them tell them they don't have to come back, then I suggest you demand something in return, perhaps an agreement that if the property is sold under any or all circumstances, the seller will return to the agency all monies abated plus 1% of the sale price. You give something, ask for something back. That's the leverage you have, right? On a separate point, I noticed that the minutes from the last meeting do not include the written public comments that the IDA received, and I hope they could be added before they're approved. Just to remind you of a couple of points that I made there since I was one of the people submitting it. It's not too early to start making contact with Cornell City and Regional Planning Department to lay the groundwork for detailed, rigorous analysis of the costs, impacts, and benefits of the Southworks project that you could then use 5 years from now when it comes back to the board. I'd say that's something that you'd want to start the research in 2 or 3 years, but it's never too soon to start laying the groundwork for that. Second, you should ask Ms. McDaniel to come up with a few different scenarios for the abatement schedule for Southworks, and they should be distributed to the taxing jurisdictions so they can use them in their planning. And finally, I urged you to revise the document defending the need to include schools in abatement plans. There was a one-pager that was included with the agenda for the last meeting, and its current form is an embarrassment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the IDA? Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Kramer, and last time I was at this microphone was in 2019 at the vote for the tax abatement for Library Place. And at the time, there were many comments submitted, many speakers who spoke, and I would have hoped that before the discussion for amending the abatement, that the members, especially new members, would have gone back and looked at those documents. The fact that Jerry Dietz asked whether the senior housing component was a big factor in decisions, you look at the comments there, and there were members of the public who had been gerontology professors, lifelong board members, the ED of lifelong. Many seniors wrote in before the LPC vote and the tax abatement vote, saying that this was critical that we needed the senior housing. The fact that these amendments are voted on without really looking at the original abatements and the documents, the financial situation that the developer was in then. I brought up the fact that in 9 months, the cost of the project had gone from 20 million to 30 million, and with no explanation. And it was clear that Frost already then had some financial issues. So I agree with Amanda that there needs to be more scrutiny, there needs to be more oversight. Projects that have already been approved, when you revisit those to amend them, and there needs to be just a lot more scrutiny, and as Amanda said, doing your homework and going back and looking at the situation 6 years ago now, almost, from 2019, when Frost was already talking about the enormous costs that the ILPC changes had brought about. Now he's saying that it's all pandemic related, supply chain related, and LaChase's labor shortages. In fact, what I was told that the 2 years of no activity at the site was actually due to the fact that the contractor had not been paid. So for Frost to say that those were reasons when the real reason was some serious financial instability, that needs to be made public, and it needs to be considered by you guys before just letting this continue, and other developers coming up and being given abatements when their financial picture is really questionable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the IDA? And I include, if anybody wishes to address the Development Corporation at the same time, we would accept comment. Seeing none, I'd like to proceed to the rest of the agenda. Are there any additions? I'm not aware of anything being added. First item of business is the BVSHF modification request. Kelly, do you want to introduce that? And I think we have a guest.
Yes, thank
okay.
you. With us today, we have Jeff Githens, the president of Peak Made Real Estate. And the request today is for modifications for the State Street Apartments project, requesting modification to the mortgage recording tax benefit, aligning the date of the property tax benefit with the construction and tax roll timelines, and language from the lender for the project.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Githens. Is there anything you want to share with the IDA?
Well, thank you for having or hearing our request. It's good to see you again. It's been some time since we've been in front of the board. After many years of effort, we are finally able to start this project, and we have done some limited mobilization on site to be ready to start construction here near the end of the month. The request in front of you today is to clean up some dates, some amounts, as you know, the project has grown in size and budget, just to true up, all of the considerations within the IDA agreements, and to satisfy some requests of our lender around the foreclosure or post-foreclosure transferability of the benefits, which is very important to the lender to finance the project. Without the lender, we will struggle to get the project off the ground, even though we have mobilized. So we're trying to get everything cleaned up for a final close with our financing and the advancement of the construction here in the next few weeks. So thank you.
Okay. Deborah, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I find it, so am I correct in understanding that what you're saying, Mr. Githens, is that this request for the ability to sell the project with the incentives is at the request of your mortgage lender?
Well, let me clarify. Under and what is permitted in the IDA statutes is upon foreclosure. Again, we hope the highly unlikely scenario of a lender foreclosing upon the project because of the performance not meeting lender's requirements. The abatement would transfer to the foreclosing lender as long as they fulfill the obligations within the agreement and not require the board's approval for the abatement benefits to transfer. That's already allowed. The scenario, though, post that event, where a lender has taken ownership of a property out of foreclosure, lenders are not typically in the business of holding on to foreclosed property. They would look to exit that ownership in selling it to another qualified buyers. We've kind of defined it, who also would be required to comply with the IDA, the requirements within the IDA agreements, that we're asking for that to be a permitted transfer within an amendment to our agreements, such that lender, upon foreclosure, would have the ability, again, a lender's taken a loss at this point, investor's taken a loss, lender would want to exit even though there is a loss, but allow for those benefits to transfer to the next buyer post a foreclosure event. So that's not currently within the IDA statutes as we understand it, and we're looking to make that an amendment to our agreement, and that's at the request of our lender, who has, experience in IDA agreements throughout the state of New York, and has been able to at least amend or add that condition to those agreements to protect them in the event that they need to exit post foreclosure.
Okay.
I have to say, I have a real problem with this.
Well, why don't we proceed and let's separate it out. Let's talk about the first two, and then we'll come back to this one, because I agree this one is going to take a little bit of discussion. But I'd like to find out from the members the first two requests for the aligning the mortgage amount with the actual mortgage and aligning the dates for the abatement to the actual construction schedule. Does anybody want to speak to those, or are we okay with those? Ann?
Yeah, I would like to also separate those two out, and I would be willing, the first two, and I'd be willing to move those so we can, I would move those two together.
Why don't we take care of those?
Take the other one separately if somebody wants to move it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Rich?
Todd?
Can I ask a question? Where does Peak stand on local labor for fulfilling the 75% local labor with your estimates?
They haven't started construction yet.
No, but did they solicit bids yet?
Yeah, I guess the question is, Mr. Githens, where are you in the bidding process? Have you identified who your contractors are going to be?
Yeah, we have. And our general contractor is Purcell Construction, who some of you may know. They've built, several comparable properties in Ithaca City Center, the Ithacan, to name a couple. They are in the process of selecting all of their, I think they have largely selected their subcontractors, but have not yet signed or executed agreements with all of those subcontractors. So that's still in process.
And I assume you're proceeding in line with the local labor policy that we have here at the IDA.
It is in line with the requirements of our IDA agreements. I'd have to go back to them to cite them specifically, but
Okay.
Purcell is very familiar with your IDA process and the requirements of our own agreement.
Because this one does fall under 75% local labor, right, Rich? This project.
Okay.
Heather?
I'm not sure. I would have to go back through the documents if this project was approved prior to the construction labor policy being put in place. So I can't tell you definitively.
I thought it was, Heather. I thought it was after they redid it the second time, and then they changed names and redid it, that fell underneath the new guidelines of 75% local labor.
And it may have. I just don't, I don't recall. So
Todd, I think
don't
we
wanna
need to do
speak
some
out of
homework.
turn.
We need to do
Okay,
some homework, Todd. We'll
I
try
need to know
find
that
out
before
for
I'm
you.
ready to vote on
Okay.
stuff.
But where we're sitting right now, could I get a motion on the first two requests, the mortgage and the alignment of the schedule? Ann moves?
Yeah, I'll move those
Jeff
two.
seconds?
Second.
Okay.
Question?
Yeah, Deborah.
Yeah, when was this decision made to increase the amount that you were financing and why?
Mr. Githens, did you hear that?
Yeah, we've been in front of the IDA on a couple of occasions. The last time when this item was discussed was in the May of 2023. At the time, we had a budget that we were trying to hit. As we have gotten to now January of 25, the budget is higher than what it was in May when we came back to the IDA. And the loan amount, or the loan to cost ratio, is slightly higher. So those two inputs have increased the amount of the loan from what had been, call it 100 million in May of 23 to 125 million today.
Thank you.
Okay. Other members of the IDA? Questions, comments? Ann?
Yeah, maybe I missed it from what you just said. I know you said the percentage of the loan for the project has increased, from 60 to 70%. Did you say, did the overall cost for the project increase or just the loan amount?
Both are true. The overall cost went up slightly, and the loan to cost percentage has gone up from 60 to 70%.
And what has the overall cost gone up?
The overall cost from comparing it to May of 2023, I would have to look. It is up, I'm certain of that. I can probably find that while we're in the meeting here.
Okay.
And it would have been part of that submittal, so let me look it up.
Okay. And Heather, Kelly, just for clarity, the mortgage abatement is on the state portion, and that is not the local.
Right.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. All right. Further questions, comments on the motion on the table?
I guess I got one, Rich.
Sure.
I understand the problems that they're having, but I mean, I just don't understand how it's the taxpayers' burden, because the cost went up and stuff. I understand the reason why they're asking for these, but I'd hate to see it fall on the taxpayers. There's a lot of risk when you develop jobs and build jobs. I think that's the risk that the owners and the owners and investment people take when they do a project.
Yeah, I take your point. I guess I see it that we agreed to abate the mortgage tax, and as they've structured their deal, it's a larger mortgage, and we agreed to a percentage on that. So I don't have a problem with that request.
I'd still like to know how much the overall cost of the project went up.
Okay. And Heather?
When we did the modifications in 2023, the project cost was $117 million.
Okay. So what is it now?
Well, the mortgage amount is saying they're 125 million.
So that's 70% of whatever.
Yeah, I've got it here, Heather. So you're right. In May of 23, our application or request included total cost of 166 million. The current budget for the project is 176 million. So it's up $10 million.
Half of which is financed. Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? Are we ready to vote? I'll call the roll. Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Todd.
Todd needs to vote.
Todd. Sorry. Todd?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's unanimous on those two. So let's proceed. Why don't we put a motion on the floor for discussion purposes for the other item, and that'll allow us to take a vote on it. Is there somebody willing to move it?
I'll put it on the floor.
Okay, Jeff? Get a second? Duxon seconds. It sounds like this is going to be a tough row, but it is on the floor for discussion. Jeff?
So I guess I got a question for Russ. So Russ, do you see this request a lot in your travels with IDAs, that the lender is actually requesting this?
Yeah, on larger projects, this is not atypical. Jeff and our firm and his team have had multiple discussions on this and how to structure it such that if there is an unlikely event of foreclosure where the bank comes in and takes the property, the benefits don't automatically continue. They have to operate the project, comply with the job requirements and all the rights and obligations under the IDA documents. If the bank were to come in and foreclose and shut the doors, everything would be terminated and go back on the tax rolls. In the event that the bank does foreclose and then wants to transfer the property to what is defined as a qualified operator, again, assuming all the rights and obligations under the IDA documents, what they're asking for is not having to come back to the board for that approval. And as I said, on larger financings like this, it's not necessarily out of the norm. And oftentimes the banks just want a flat out, we get it, no matter what we do with it, which is never seems to fly. So it's not atypical.
And this is only specific to a foreclosure situation. If it was sold, then obviously this would not apply.
Exactly. If they're going along swimmingly and they decide they want to transfer the property to a purchaser and get out of the transaction, that would require consent of the board.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, as Jeff alluded to, the chances of this happening are quite unlikely, and we would, if the board decides to proceed, have protections where, again, you'd have to have a qualified operator and they would have to assume all the obligations under the documents.
Yeah, we've certainly, this is interesting to me because we've certainly addressed the issue of developers selling and selling at a substantially higher price than their development cost. This seems to be the mirror image of that, where there would be a distressed property. And while it's unlikely that a future IDA would want to pile on in those circumstances, I feel a little bit uncomfortable constraining a future IDA. I mean, we went through that long discussion in regards to Southworks that while we might have the power to do it, I don't know if we should. Perhaps this is different. I need to think further on it, but I'd love to hear from other IDA members what you're thinking. Deborah.
Yeah, you know, it's a little less distressing to think about providing this leeway limited to a foreclosure situation. I guess what bothers me about this whole scenario is we've got a big well-off company as the developer who has to finance 50% of what is, in the context of the total project cost, not a very large increase, or is choosing to do so. And a lender is anticipating a foreclosure possibility. And I worked for the FDIC, so I understand lenders are cautious. It just seems to me that the whole point of what we do as an IDA is to make it financially possible for projects to move forward. And we shouldn't be in a position where we're having to extend incentives in anticipation of the possibility that this project that was now supposed to be viable because of what we allowed might not be viable in the future. And it also concerns me that you're creating a twisted incentive if there's a problem with the project to just walk away because the foreclosure will move forward. I mean, I'm sure this is some sort of limited liability arrangement. Foreclosure moves forward, PeakMade walks away, the bank can sell it out of foreclosure subject to the incentives. I just don't like this. This is not comfortable for me, and I'm not sure I can support it.
Just one point of clarification, and if I may, and as I mentioned, Jeff and his team and I have spoken many times about this. It wouldn't, the scenario wouldn't be as though the bank forecloses, comes in, takes the property, and could let it sit there.
No, they sell it to somebody else.
Right, and that has to be to a qualified operator that would continue to operate it as induced by the IDA, as the incentives were provided, and they would have to assume all the obligations. So if the bank forecloses and it just sits there, we terminate, property goes back on the tax rolls, which nobody wants to have happen, obviously.
No, I mean, I understand that. It's just that it seems to me that when we as an IDA evaluate a proposal and decide to provide incentives, the whole point of the incentive is that it is financially viable and there won't be a foreclosure. It just seems to me that we're not doing something right entirely if we have to make this accommodation to make a lender happy that, you know, it might not be financially viable and they'll be okay if it isn't. Maybe I'm not expressing this very clearly. This just really doesn't sit well with me.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah, I think Deborah couldn't say it any better. I agree 100% with Deborah's thoughts on this. It bothers me. Like I said, you're really taking, you know, developers know there's a certain risk. Everyone knows there's a certain risk when they do a project. And now it's like you're just taking that off the table. So, you know, there's no risk involved. So where's the skin in the game to get them, you know, to see this project through and not just go bankruptcy like Deborah was saying. I'm against that. I don't think it should be it's not the taxpayers' responsibility to see the project through. We gave them the incentives, and that should be enough on the taxpayers' end. And plus, with the IDA, we should be creating jobs. You know, not so much just rental properties.
Okay.
I'm definitely against it.
Okay. I'm going to take a turn. I indicated I wanted to think about it a little bit. I actually have. It percolated. And I'm coming to the other side of this. And it reminds me of what one of our privilege of the floor speakers was saying. This is a big company, and we should be considering that external factor. I'm not sure that we can really do that very well. We look at deals, and we approve deals on properties, and what we're looking for is you will build this, you will do it in a certain way, you will meet certain commitments. And within that, I'm not so concerned who the owner is. If they're going to hold up their end of the bargain, that's what the IDA wants to see happen in the community. And in this instance, there'd be a distressed property. It would be an involuntary situation. If there's a new buyer coming in that says, yes, I will meet the promises made to the IDA, I think I'm okay with that and committing to that. I think we need to think further about our policy in the event of sales, and I think that seems to be something where I think you all agree that we need to look more carefully at that when there's a sale particularly for a substantial profit. But in this circumstance, I think I'm all right with the proposal. And it certainly is something where we want these properties to be marketable. When a property gets IDA assistance, we don't want it to be sort of orphaned that only one entity can ever own it. You know, that it becomes very difficult to transfer the ownership. So that's where I'm at.
Can I comment?
Sure.
Or do I need to?
No, go ahead.
Wait. Yeah, I want to give another perspective here. And for starters, we're not developing and building this very, nice and expensive project for it to be foreclosed upon. I mean, that's no one's intent. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't believe in the project completely and have spent many years trying to get to this point. So, the intentions are to perform as we have underwritten and to satisfy our lender and investors. So the foreclosure scenario, it's like in any legal document, and it's funny how you can spend 80% of your time on the 1% chance of something happening in a legal document just to get it right and protect everyone. And that's kind of what this is. We don't expect this to happen, but it might, and so the lender wants to be protected. The others, we've been out to market for quite a while on this project and in front of many lenders trying to get interest. And I'd say the count of lenders that we have presented this to is probably greater than 100. And we have finally, after all of that effort, landed a very capable lender who has experience in New York State, has experience in this asset class, and has a need for this language. And so we all want this project to happen. We want the lender to be there for us. They've not yet closed on the loan, and they're waiting on the outcome of this meeting. There is great risk that, we would lose our lender if we don't get this language. And I'm not trying to place that burden on you, but I'm just stating, just very clearly the ramifications of this. And, we're trying to keep a project going that everyone in Ithaca, I think, is largely in support of. It does create jobs. It's going to increase your tax roll tremendously over time. So it's a net benefit to the community. But we've got to get it off the ground. And this is, a request to make lender comfortable to allow us to do so.
Okay. Further comment, questions? Jeff?
So I guess, I was coming to this really struggling with how I would foresee this. And I think, Rich, you kind of hit the nail on the head for me. I don't feel like it's an unusual circumstance. We haven't certainly had this before. But I think I'm comfortable with voting yes on this, because it's not necessarily, our job is to create growth. It's not like this lender or subsequent is going to do anything differently. If they do, then this deal goes away. So I think I would be comfortable with this.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Duxon?
Yeah, I think you articulated it well, Rich. And I'm a bit maybe too singularly focused on the creation of housing in the city. And, as you mentioned, as long as they are fulfilling the obligations that they agreed to under a distressed situation, then I'm comfortable with it. I think I and most of the community was extremely uncomfortable or enraged by, in fact, the sale of City Center and the circumstances in which those benefits transferred. And so I do think we should get these corner cases, determine what we as a body want to do in these situations so that, A, it'll save time for applicants, but also make it clearer and have a more comprehensive discussion on that.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to vote? Anybody else have anything to say? Okay. I'll call the roll. Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
No.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
No.
And the chair votes yes. And
Todd.
Todd.
No.
Sorry, Todd.
That's good.
I think that's 3-3, so it does not pass. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at, Mr. Githens. Please keep us advised.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on, we have a request regarding Asteri Parking LLC. And I realize on privilege of the floor that I have a comment from the City of Ithaca, Office of the City Manager. And I believe you all have a copy of it. It is in support of the request.
Rich, excuse me, that actually was not part of privilege of the floor. That was just a supportive document that was sent today.
So it's not in the packet, but.
Right.
All right, well, I won't read it into the record, but I note for the committee members, you have the letter from the city manager in support of the proposal. And I think we might have some guests here.
We do. We have Kate Donahue, Executive Director of Cinemapolis. We have David Squires, Treasurer of Cinemapolis. Bruce Adibiazdi from Vicino Group, Vice President of Development.
If you'd care to come up, we could give you seats at the end. And I have a question for our council. I have been yeah, please have a seat. You can join us. I've been a member of Cinemapolis. I don't think, I think I might get some benefit in buying movie tickets occasionally, but it's really a support of the organization. Does that create a conflict for me?
No, so long as you disclose it and there's no pecuniary benefit for you by approving this or potentially approving this, then
Okay.
you're okay.
My husband and I are members as well.
Yeah, so again, so long, same rules apply.
I'm also a member, and I've spent thousands of dollars.
Oh, you're out.
Okay.
I am not a member, but I do frequent and pay full price.
Okay, well, welcome. And if somebody, Kelly or somebody would like to just give us a very brief overview of the request here, and it sounds, it's a little convoluted.
Yeah, it's a lot convoluted.
Do you want to go first?
I will, sure. I did provide some clarity. My apologies for the community benefit memo. It's my first time. So Asteri Parking LLC is requesting a property tax abatement for the benefit of Cinemapolis, because if Cinemapolis were able to own their property, they would not pay property taxes as they are a nonprofit organization. However, due to the current ownership structure, they are ineligible to purchase their location. Asteri Parking LLC owns the parking garage and Cinemapolis and leases them to the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency, IURA. Cinemapolis has a sublease to the IURA whereby they pay property taxes. The City of Ithaca pledged them as collateral in their bond financing. Cinemapolis would like the IDA to abate the existing property taxes for 28 years, the duration of the bond financing, until they are then eligible to buy their property and in turn not be required to pay property taxes.
Okay. Deborah.
So I'm still trying to understand how the money flows around, but if Asteri doesn't have to pay taxes, then they won't charge Cinemapolis for the taxes they have to pay. Is that the bottom line here?
Correct.
So this is really for the benefit of Cinemapolis, not for Vecino.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Okay. Jeff.
Just a question. So this is a change from what, so before Asteri took over, you were paying property taxes?
Cinemapolis has always, since we opened our current location in 2009, the responsibility for taxes has been to Cinemapolis under a triple net lease. We recently purchased our leasehold from our previous for-profit landlord, which was Cayuga Green. And now we rent directly from IURA, the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency. I think I might be just confused everybody a little bit more. I am happy to sort of clarify and expand what I said. However, Cinemapolis has had responsibility under for property taxes under triple net lease. Asteri has agreed to a lease amendment, which will be reviewed by the IURA, which would transfer responsibility to Asteri Parking LLC in the event that a pilot was granted.
So just to clarify then, so are you coming before us then because Cinemapolis has some financial difficulties and therefore needs an abatement on the real estate taxes because it has been paying before?
Well, there was a mistake was made many years ago when the Cinemapolis space was not included in the documents, and we are trying to get out from underneath that mistake. The laws changed that the IDA can't directly do a transaction because of not-for-profit. So this is the bond counsel from Harris Beach has assisted us in developing a way to get out from underneath this. We're the only arts organization that pays property taxes in Tompkins County. The Hangar Theater, the State Theater, all are tax exempt. We operate in the same fashion as them, that just we cannot, and we've been on the assessment rolls since 2009,
I think.
and we don't, and it's important, this is a material amount of money right now to pay the property taxes. With the whole industry for theaters has changed dramatically since COVID, and anything we can do to lower our overhead enhances our ability to survive.
Okay.
And we're not talking about a small amount. We were paying, up until 2023, we were paying $50,000 a year in property taxes. Now our assessment has been adjusted, but we're still paying $26,000 a year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, why don't we put it on the floor?
Yeah, I'd like to put it on the floor.
Motion.
Right? And, okay, Deborah, seconds. Thank you. It sounds like this, through all the complications, it just makes sense to do this. We want to support Cinemapolis. In the event Cinemapolis ceased operations and somebody wanted to repurpose that, I assume this pilot would terminate. Yes, Russ?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It would have to be operated as induced.
Okay. Further comments or questions? Deborah?
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to support this because it benefits Cinemapolis. When I first saw this, I couldn't quite understand. I thought it was an additional benefit to Vicino, and I have my issues with Vicino and Asteri, which I'm giving you all fair notice I will be raising at a future meeting. But this is about Cinemapolis, and so I will vote for it.
Okay. Further questions, comments?
Just one clarification. So we're just going to public hearing. The financial assistance is over $100,000.
Oh, okay.
We'll be back to the board presumably next month.
Yeah.
So we're
Okay.
voting on a public hearing?
Yeah. Kelly?
Yeah.
And one additional thing to add is that a retail determination will need to be made, if you would like to
Yeah,
expand on
because
that.
it's a retail facility, which is a term of art under the IDA enabling legislation. It's a unique facility. It provides a service that's not otherwise reasonably available, given the indie nature of the theater, and it's not first-run movies. So we have to go to the city to get their confirming approval. As Heather and Kelly noted, we have their support. There has to be some language changes to that based upon my quick review this morning, but that shouldn't be a problem.
Yes, so we are requesting to create or to have an amendment to the application, specifically on page 20 in the retail questionnaire section, making a modification to section 10, question 3, which we just need the answer to be changed on that for
That's easy.
the retail determination. So we would just ask for approval to accept the application pending that change
Okay.
as well.
And so we'd be voting today to send it to public hearing.
That's right.
Okay. Further discussion?
So I'd like to amend my, if I
Just
could, clarify
for public
what I was
hearing.
putting on the floor for the public hearing and to accept the application?
Yes.
Okay. And Deborah, you second?
Yes.
Okay, friendly? All right. Ready to vote. I'm going to learn here. Todd?
Yes.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that's taken care of. We're good.
Thank you.
We will see you again soon.
And do we have a date for the public hearing, or well, probably not yet, right?
It will not, it'll
Okay,
get
we'll
scheduled.
schedule that, all right.
Okay. And we're going to get a new motion,
Do you have an extra agenda packet?
if you want to make that.
I have it on my phone.
She usually has extras right here.
Because I have it on my phone, too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, next item of business is library place discussion, and I believe we have a guest with us. Is Frost here?
Hey, Rich, I got to step away again. Conflict of interest.
Okay. And as the IDA is aware, we had this discussion at our last meeting regarding a request to change the age requirement for leasing at Library Place. There's been some further information received, and Frost requested a chance to come speak with us. So, welcome.
Thank you. So, I've heard a lot of public comment about the rents and, being really high, and there are very good reasons for that with the cost of the project. And, but I also understand that, it's, as I've said before, it's comparable or less than other senior housing, even though it's just market rate housing with supportive kind of infrastructure for that. But for the viability of the project, we're requesting the removal of the age restriction to enlarge the available market of prospective tenants. And what I propose as an inducement is that we would lower the effective rents by 10% for 2 years, or for a period of that. I mean, we would have normal escalation in the rent from the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, or inflation, but we would lower the effective rent by 10%.
Right.
So,
and it's my understanding you may have some additional investment that's allowing you to do that. But
correct.
The age restriction would be a condition of that.
The removal of the age restriction is a condition of the additional investment.
Okay. So that's where we sit today. I'd open it up if members of the IDA have further questions or comments. Duxon.
Would that apply to your existing tenants?
Yes.
Okay. Ann.
Thank you for providing this information, and I know for myself, that was something that I was thinking if, I would like to see the rents lowered as going forward to not just doing the age restriction. So what, would you still be doing something geared towards? I know your advertisements and things like that say active adults, and would it still be geared towards that, but just removing the age restriction? So just wondering how if this would change your marketing at all.
We would simply remove the active adult 55 plus, but it wouldn't change our agreement with Lifelong. That's a 10-year agreement. It wouldn't change. It's likely that it would still be a majority senior housing. It's a very quiet building, and our residents prefer it that way. But they also, as I presented 2 meetings ago, the majority of our existing residents support having a mixed age population in the building. One of our residents says, I would much rather have the youth and vitality of younger residents mixed in with us, with we older residents, rather than just being a warehouse for old people. This is a quote. So.
Okay. I will say, I've had some recent conversations over the last couple of weeks with some folks in places where it was geared towards mature or older population, and they were saying to me that they wished that there was some way, they really can't change where they're at now, but that they wish that there was more younger folks there. So that really helped change my thinking, along with the decrease in the rents.
Okay. So in light of the presentation, is there any interest in putting a motion on the floor to reconsider? Yes, Deborah.
I would move that we accept this proposal. And as I understand it, we remove the age restriction, and you're going to lower the rents by 10% across the board.
Correct.
For a period of 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Ann seconds. Further discussion? Heather.
Yeah, what happens after the 2 years? Will it be reevaluated? Will it be?
It sounds like the rents would increase by the CPI. Is that what you're saying after that 2-year period?
Can you say that again for us? A little closer to the mic.
Sure. So the rents would increase. Our expenses go up every year. That's why we have the rent adjustments. But so we would lower them right away by 10%, and then we would adjust as any other landlord would by the CPI going forward. So the overall rent in year 2 would still be, increased, but the effective rent would be 10% less than it would be even if escalated. And the 2 years is what I'm proposing for that. And then we also have a constraint on how much we can raise the rent with the Fair Housing Act and the Just Cause Eviction. We can't raise it more than 10% anyway. And okay. I don't think the market would support that after the 2-year period.
Did that answer your question, Todd?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, I guess I'll jump in and make a comment. I appreciate the effort made to address the issues we raised a month ago. Getting the rents down was a consistent talking point then, and you've got at that. I would support this motion as it serves the community, I believe, to have this as a viable building. It doesn't serve anybody if it goes into foreclosure. And getting lower rents is good. So I'm okay with it. Anybody else want to comment? Are you ready to vote?
Yeah, one comment. I appreciate the same thing that you came back with some lower, that 10% reduction. But the only thing I'm worried about, when this was sold to the public, it was sold for affordable housing, for senior living. And so we still got that void there for senior living because it is tough for people to get in there financially. So we still got the problem there that this really didn't address.
Yeah.
So that's my concern, yeah.
One of the things that came up last month is that I believe it's really time for another housing needs assessment review by the planning department, that we really should get a good picture of all of our housing in the community and seeing where we're at. But that's a broader discussion, I think. So anyway, we ready to vote? I will call the roll. Todd?
No.
Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jerry?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, with one abstention, and that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frost. Okay. Next item of business is chair's report. I do not have a report. We can proceed to staff report. And we had some items from last month we didn't get to, but Kelly?
We do have a staff report today. A couple of updates. The Stately closed right before the new year at 510 West State Street. INA started this week sending out the annual reporting requests for Paris on all of our active projects. The construction labor policy needs to be reviewed annually, so we will be making some suggested updates to it due to changes with working with our consultant, Loki Brill. And once the legislative members are set on the IDA board, we can appoint all of our committees, including local labor, to review that policy. The governor did not sign the bill requiring school district and union reps on IDA boards, as they are already eligible to serve.
Okay.
Did you want to mention about the just last night reappointing or continuing the membership for some of the at-large
Thank you, Ann.
members?
Actually, you remembered. Why don't you tell?
Last night's county legislature meeting, we passed a resolution continuing not the legislature positions, but the other positions to go forward through the end of January, just to fill that gap there so that everybody could participate and vote today.
So, yes, thank you, Ann. I appreciate the information you've provided on the Community Housing Development Fund. And it looks like we have awarded $445,000 2 projects to help with affordable housing, and that's leveraged, of course, with state and federal grants and other funding sources, and we've really accomplished a tremendous amount in the community with this money, and looks like we've got a total of almost $1 million received, so we've got another $500,000 or more to apply right now, and far more than that will come in the next few years. So we have a really good base here to help with building affordable housing in our community. I think this is pretty exciting. Jeff?
Just wanted to make a note. So in this affordable housing, I'm assuming 401 State Street is just the State Street project that we just talked about, right?
Yes.
And so that's $1.8 million right there, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Questions or comments for our administrative director? And I know we have 2 administrative directors with us today. This is our transition time, and I appreciate the work you both are doing to help support us here. Okay.
One additional thing I didn't mention, my apologies, the local labor waiver report on page 29. We had some come in for the Breeze.
And remind us where the Breeze is located. That's up on Gunshot Hill?
Yes.
Okay. Lake Street. Okay.
Can I ask what it was, Kelly?
Yep. So there were a couple. One was for fireproofing, fire protection, gypcrete, HVAC, and plumbing.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the administrative waivers? Duxon?
Sorry, just go back to the housing fund. I just want to say quickly what a game changer. So Ann and I have served on the CHDF for some time now, and the funds from the IDA have just been game-changing. I do think that the 3 major partners, the city, the county, and Cornell, need to really think about upping their contributions because it's been static for quite a while, since its inception, I think. So we're due to invest more ourselves, but in lieu of that for now, the constraints of that 400,000 are augmented now by these funds that have made just an incredible difference in the construction of affordable housing, like you said. So I just want to highlight that it is one of my motivations for seeing projects get completed is because not only for the housing that gets created directly, but the indirect impact it has on this fund.
Yeah, it is remarkable the leverage. So, Ann?
Yeah, if I could just add to that, and Heather is on that board too, that I'll say a year or so ago, we thought, oh, with all this influx of money, and it is a huge influx of money compared to what we usually have, we thought, oh, what do we want to change, our program a little bit because we're going to have all this extra money, what are we going to do with it? But we've actually just still don't have enough for the projects that are coming towards us, which is good that we have a lot of projects coming towards us, but it's really just keeping afloat and being able to incentivize, provide a small incentive for projects to go forward. So if we didn't have this, we would be having to turn away most, I would say, majority of applicants that come to us for housing. So this is a game changer.
Hey, Deborah.
Yeah, as a follow-up to that, I don't know whose idea this was. Was this yours, Heather? Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of said, the IDA doesn't want to be a housing agency. And so we were in a really fortunate position, I think, that we had developed the Community Housing Development Fund. I've been on it since the beginning. Martha Robertson and I rolled up our sleeves and put together this program. It's gone through a couple of iterations, but the fact that our community had an entity that was effectively supporting affordable housing so that the IDA funds could go there rather than the IDA saying, oh, let's be a housing agency and start funding affordable housing. It was just, it just seemed like a perfect fit.
Well, I just wanted to say that it's really been a game changer in more ways than one. The fact that we assess this fee against our developers, because 10 years ago I was Teresa Alt. I mean, I would come to your meetings and say, you need to be incentivizing affordable housing. And at some point, Heather made a presentation explaining in dollars and cents why IDA incentives would just never be an effective way to bankroll the development of affordable housing. So I'm really grateful that that you all came up with this option, because this seems to be working much better than what we were advocating for in the past. So thank you.
Yeah, I think on average, I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but I think on average, the Community Housing Development Fund spends about $7,500 to leverage lots of other state and federal funding to make affordable housing projects possible.
Okay. Todd, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment just so when Kelly mentioned those waivers with the administrative waivers on that project, that's one thing I'm definitely going to be pushing for, is make some changes on that with our policy, because like, for example, the State Street project, I just heard that I was on the phone actually as this meeting was starting with one of the owners of J.C. Lowry on that project. He spent a month estimating that project, working with Purcell, doing all the stuff with it. And then all of a sudden there was dead silence, and the job gets, and they take someone else for the project, to do all the metal framing and the studding. Metal framing and the sheetrocking and taping. So there's when I see something coming up where someone had to have a local labor waiver because they can't find people. I mean, I know I'm just shocked to hear that the plumbing and HVAC couldn't get people locally on that project. I believe everything what Kelly and Heather are saying there, but it just shocks me when I see, especially trades like that, where I see they're not getting local bidders, or at least bidders that use local labor.
Okay.
I definitely would like to address that with our policy updates we make.
Todd, we should take this offline, because I'd love to talk to you about how do you find a plumber? I've been looking for a plumber for months. But a different issue. We'll get into that outside of this meeting. Okay. Anything further for the staff report? We need to keep going here. Okay, we have minutes from our December 11th, 2024 board meeting. Could I get a motion? Deborah moves. Jeff seconds. Ann.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, for instance, on packet page 34, where about 3/4 of the way down, when we took the vote, it said the motion failed 3-2. If we could, and I don't know if we usually have this, but I would like to see for this one amended, and then going forward, who voted what, so for more transparency for the public.
Okay. Okay. We will. That's, I assume, doable for the minutes. Thank you, Ina. Okay. Any further business to come before the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do we have to approve the minutes?
Oh, we need to. Yeah.
Good catch. Thank you. See, I'm trying to go too fast.
I normally don't catch that stuff, so
All right.
that's surprising.
So there we go. We moved and seconded, right?
Right.
Okay. I'll call the roll. Todd?
I got to abstain because I wasn't here for the meeting.
Okay. Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so the minutes are approved. Thank you for that catch. And a motion to adjourn, so we can move on. Ann moves. Deborah seconds. All those in favor? I'll take a hand vote on that. Great. We are adjourned. Now I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Tompkins County Development Corporation for Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. We did have privilege of the floor, but if anybody has come in who wished to address the Development Corporation separately on privilege of the floor, seeing none, we can go to are there any additions to the agenda? Not aware of any? Okay. First item of business is Friends of the Ithaca Farmers Market request for funding, and I believe we have some guests with us. Monica?
We do. We have Jan Norman, president of Ithaca Farmers Market, and Monica Roth, president of the Friends of Ithaca Farmers Market.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for the opportunity to come here and speak with you. I'm operating as the president of the Friends of the Market. We're a nonprofit established to help enhance the community benefit of the farmers market. And with me is Jan. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jan Rhodes Norman. I am the president of the Ithaca Farmers Market, and I'm also an entrepreneur and business member of the farmers market.
Okay,
So,
and I'm sorry, maybe you could just take a couple minutes and tell us what your request is today.
Okay. So we've been working on a project to make improvements to Steamboat Landing at the farmers market. Our site where we operate, that is city-owned land, if you aren't aware of that. We did receive a $3.8 million grant from the state, and our portion of that is $600,000. We've been raising money, trying to raise money to match that grant, which is 15%. The state pays for 85%. They're very excited about this project, and we ranked really high when we submitted the application through the city. So it's the grant goes through the city, comes to the Friends of the Farmers Market. We're going to be the fundraiser. We are the fundraiser, and then the market eventually is the beneficiary of a new parking lot. This is the first time that the market has undertaken such a large project. The market's been in operation for 50 years. It's been 36 years at our site at Steamboat Landing. And so at this point, we're starting to show our age at that site, and we've had customers complain about the parking, and we have a site design for improvements to the parking area. The project is already underway. And so at this point, we're basically coming to you to help us cross the finish line on our fundraising goal of $600,000. And I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, but Jan's here also to talk more about the market and our economic impact.
I think that's enough to get us started. I'd open it up to committee members if anybody has questions or comments. Deborah.
My only question is, you're asking for $125,000. So how much do we have in our fund balance or whatever the heck it is we're taking this out of?
We have a $379,000 approximate surplus right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
one thing I would want to mention is that when we think of the farmers market, it seems like it's maybe a big entity, but it's a cooperative, and so it is owned by all of the vendors. And so whenever we've done anything in the past, we have gotten some grants before, but otherwise what we do is all generated by us, the vendors, and now for the first time actually going to the community to see if we can get some funds raised that way.
Okay.
We have raised about, we're actually, over the holidays, we got another 100,000, so we managed to get to the $500,000 mark, so we're getting close to our match requirement. There are lots of additional costs, including the fact that we have to take out a loan to, because the way the state funds work is we have to pay the bills, then we get reimbursed. So we can't pay the bills if we don't have the money, so we have a loan through Farm Credit East. And so we are going to be facing a big interest bill, as much as $200,000. So that is also part of our fundraising need.
So you're borrowing the full amount?
Yeah. Well, no, they are only giving us $2 million so far.
Okay.
The project is about $4 million.
But you'll get reimbursed along the way, and then you'll
right. So we
borrow
hope
more?
that the reimbursements come in, and we'll be able to pay the bills. We got our first bill today.
Okay, Jeff.
Congratulations.
Right.
So you actually answered a little bit of my question there. I noted you had secured $420,000 to date, and you needed $600,000. So if we grant $125,000, I was just curious as to where that differential was going to come from. But it sounds like you're already at the $500,000 mark. Mm-hmm. So given that, are you still requesting 125 from us or 100?
No, I'd love 125. Thank you.
Because the match is 600,000, but in the time since we applied for the grant and got the grant and started construction, the costs have gone up. So we're going to have to raise that much more money to actually complete the project.
Okay. I guess I'll jump in and take a turn. This seems like a worthy project for us to think about supporting today. The Ithaca Farmers Market has a tremendous history, and it also has a proven track record. It works. And it also fits in that category that generally, as an IDA, we support large businesses and large developers. This is a way for us to support ground level, entry level business people. And the farmers market has proven a good mechanism to get people in. I think in combination with the shared commercial kitchen, this can be a small business engine in our community. And so I'm inclined to say this is a place where we should put our money to work. But I'd love to hear from the rest of you. Duxon.
Yeah, I'm very supportive. Besides it being just a community crown jewel that's important to me and other residents of Tompkins County, it is, like the memo says, a major economic driver. So yeah, I support this.
Yeah, Todd.
I agree completely with what you said, Rich and Duxon. I think it's a great success story. I'd be 100% behind it.
Anybody else? Okay. Are we ready to vote? Oh, we need to do a motion. See? Okay. Ann moves. Deborah seconds. All right. Further discussion. All right. Ready to vote. Todd.
Yes.
Duxon.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Ann.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. There.
Thank
Congratulations.
you very much.
Go out in the community and do good work.
We will.
Continue to do good work.
Continue to do good work. Great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We've actually been pretty lucky today. We've gotten to support 2 of the organizations that make life in Ithaca good.
Yeah. Well, and here we are. I believe we have some guests from the Shared Commercial Kitchen. Kelly.
Yes, we do. We have Tom Knipe from the City of Ithaca and Rod Rotundi, Board President of Shared Kitchen Ithaca, here to provide us with an update on the Shared Kitchen.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Rich. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and give an update on the Shared Kitchen Ithaca project, and to say thank you. So I serve on this project team as an advisor to the board. So I'm going to give sort of some updates on where we are with the sort of structure and fundraising, and Rod's going to talk about some of the more nuts and bolts things, and of course we can answer any questions that you have. So the project has now successfully raised all the additional funding to launch, and will open and begin serving food entrepreneurs in our community early this year. TCDC's early commitment of $150,000 for equipment was critical to leveraging other support, which has included more than $200,000 in private capital as donations and additional grant funds to serve as an operating subsidy for the first 2 years of operation. $110,000 grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission that will support additional equipment purchases, as well as some technical assistance and startup assistance, training for businesses. We've also received support from a number of local foundations for the project. The due diligence that y'all made us do as part of your vote to award funding to the project was really helpful, and it led to important changes to put it on even stronger footing financially, including and especially switching from a private model to a not-for-profit mission-based 501c3 model. That entity has been formed, has an active board of directors, So while the project is still expected to generate enough revenue through memberships and rent payments from kitchen users to be financially sustainable at stabilization, this not-for-profit model allows the kitchen to attract grant funding and donations to best serve its mission of bridging gaps in access to food entrepreneurship. The City of Ithaca, my employer, also played an important role through both my direct efforts and by providing early funding assistance through city ARPA funding to cover legal formation costs. And the IURA is providing a 50% rent subsidy for low to moderate income micro enterprises located in the city. As I mentioned, a very talented board of directors has been attracted, is working diligently on all aspects of planning and development to bring this project to launch. The board is also in the process of hiring its first staff director. And so thank you. I mean, really without your support, we wouldn't be here. I believe that this is a project that is going to serve a lot of businesses and people in our community for a long time and address a gap in the local food economy that we've all identified for a long time. So thank you. And now Rod's going to answer any questions you have about equipment and permits and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I just want to say to start with, again, thank you very much for your support. I think it was the TCDC's first move which actually made all the difference, because with that money, we knew that that money would be there. If we raised the rest of it, it made it a lot easier to get the other private donations in. And also just, it just really was a shot in the arm at a critical point. I wanted to echo what Rich John said earlier about how this project is a project which will support the small end of the spectrum, the smaller businesses. And also, I notice over there it says diversity, equity, inclusion. You're not going to find another sector, economic sector, which is so rich in diversity, equity, and inclusion aspects as the small food businesses and the small food demographic. So we are very excited to have gotten to this stage with your help, and we expect that we will be able to, we are about to be put in orders for equipment. So we expect to be able to start up in the next couple of months, I think by the end of March, if not earlier. We have taken care of all the different, tasks that we had to get through. We have our building permit. We're in the process of getting, all the tests done and the different subcontractors lined up to manage the project. We have a huge amount of interest from the local food community. Just in the last 3 months alone, I have over 40 inquiries from businesses who I've been in frequent communication with, and they're very, very ready to go. So I think we're going to vastly outpace the conservative estimates we made initially. And I think, like I had said, from a lot of people have been saying since the beginning, is that the biggest problem probably going to have is we're going to run out of space before we want to. But that's okay. There's opportunities to grow and expand beyond that for the benefit of the community. So any questions that anybody has, please fire away.
Duxon.
Were you able to reuse any of the equipment from Green Stars The Space? Would you have to get new equipment?
Yes and no. The cooking equipment was removed by Green Star when they left the place. However, I don't know how much, but certainly over $1 million they put into the place to transform it into a commercial kitchen space, including the hoods and all the cove tiling and the drains and the gas lines and electricals and all these other things. Probably at least a couple $1 million of value to us now we get for free. So that was one of the reasons we saw this as a big opportunity back a couple of years ago, because most communities who start these kind of projects have to start from scratch. They have to start from the ground up, or some warehouse they have to transform into a community kitchen. or a commercial kitchen, and it takes years and it takes millions of dollars. So yeah, although we didn't get their equipment per se, like the cooking equipment, we have all the hookups. We have, I mean, those hoods alone are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Can you also talk about what, if any, like entrepreneurial assistance you provide, or will provide rather, when it comes to transitioning from, say, a farmer's market stand to a brick and mortar restaurant, or, you know, some of those other challenges, or, you know, packaging a product for sale at a supermarket, you know, that transition period where people find a lot of difficulty?
That's a very interesting question. A lot of what we're doing in terms of our incubation services is, first of all, meeting the entrepreneur where they are and trying to solve the existing problems and hurdles that they face, but then to understand really where they want to take their business, give them some guidance about best routes and best means of getting there. And, you know, in some cases it is going to be a brick and mortar, although these days actually a lot of food companies are not going the brick and mortar route and doing very well with it. We have certainly quite a few interested entrepreneurs who are CPG, consumer packaged goods oriented businesses, and they will be very happy to operate out of our kitchen probably for a while until they get to the point where they've outgrown us, which is what we're looking for. It's not a problem, it's an objective. At which case they could either go to a co-packer, they could set up their own facility, or maybe by that time we will have set up a second phase of this project where we have graduates of our facility going into small, graduated sized commercial kitchens all in one facility. So you start out at 500 square feet, you later move into a 1,500. So we can actually kind of funnel these businesses through their growth stages. So a lot of what we're focused on is not, I mean, we're providing a space and the tools for them to do what they need to do, but the incubation services, the mentoring, the community liaisons that we're going to help facilitate and help them grow. We've been working very hard on developing our relationships with all these different organizations and individuals in the community. Ithaca is rich in these people and these institutions. So we've been working very hard at developing them. We have a lot of connections now with different Cornell organizations, and it definitely bodes well for the benefit of all these entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Okay, Ann.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for all the work you've done on this. I was astounded when I went to the last open house, I think you'd call it, to see the progress that you've made and all. I mean, I can't. It's hard to really elaborate on the connections that you have and the interest in the community. You know, like you said, for the mentorship, but. And then the connections for these businesses to expand. And just wanted to also comment on what you said about, you know, diversity and equity. You know, what I saw there and talking to some of the different businesses that were interested, you know, there were some just starting out. There were some that needed to expand or were hoping to expand or needing advice on figuring out what were the next steps, which all are things that this place will help with. And also seeing people of different ethnicities, different ages, different stages in their businesses. So thank you. I think it's already a success, you know, to give people, when I talk to folks there, the hope, and it will continue, but just the hope of figuring this out. I know, as having worked for several small businesses, having had a couple of small businesses of my own, it takes a lot. And you have to be hopeful and really persevere, but to have assistance in doing that is so great. So thank you for doing this, and we're glad to be a small part of helping make this happen.
Very important part, Ann. Very important part.
Okay. This is fun. So thank you for coming in and just giving us an update, and look forward to that Turn the Key Open Day. It sounds like it's rushing at us.
You'll all be getting invitations.
Yeah, well, wonderful. Deborah.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on how refreshing it was for Tom to thank us for being difficult.
We do what we're good at.
It's an art form.
And actually, in the spirit of being a little difficult and maybe putting Tom on the spot, while you're here wearing another hat, could you just tell us a little bit about the convention center? If you're not prepared to do that today, that's okay. But I think given that we've supported that project and it's underway, it would be great to hear a little bit, if you can.
I'm very happy to speak about that. I sit on the board of directors for the Downtown Ithaca Local Development Corporation, which is the entity that sort of owns the lease on the space and oversees the third-party operator. I'm also the responsible staff person for collection and distribution of city room tax, which is the primary revenue source supporting the conference center project. I think Bruce left, and I don't see Nan here anymore, but yeah, I mean, I think everyone working on the project recognizes that ensuring a positive guest experience is really important to the long-term success of the project. And you know, I'm pleased to report that between opening in July and the end of 2024, they hosted 71 events, welcomed nearly 10,000 people through the door for those events. Just curious, who's been in the space? So almost everyone, you're welcome anytime. We can get you a tour for those of you that haven't. It's beautiful. And it has state-of-the-art AV equipment. It has a state-of-the-art kitchen. The food that they're putting out, the kitchen is fabulous. They have wonderful staff that are working really hard to make the conference center the success that we all believe that it could be as we've worked on this over the last 7 or 8 years. And yes, it has been that long that we've been working on this. And fortunately, the feedback that we've gotten from the conference attendees and the organizers has been overwhelmingly positive in terms of that guest experience that, you know, we want to maintain and ensure happens. And we know, you know, that there is broad awareness in the community that there have been challenges related to the space and welcoming permanently supportive housing downtown, co-located with a conference center and other businesses downtown. And it's caused a lot of stress and hand-wringing and consternation amongst the folks working on the conference center, as well as all the partners that are adjacent to the space and have a stake. So I think that's important to acknowledge that. That said, responding to those challenges has been a real focus. I can give you some examples.
Sure.
My colleagues at the city, as well as, you know, the DIA, Vecino, IPD, they're really actively working on, you know, on making sure that, you know, the housing project does what it intended to do in terms of serving the population well, and meeting their obligations, you know, as managers of the housing project, holding folks' feet to the fire a little bit. There are a number of ongoing meetings, I mean weekly, about addressing the concerns that have been raised. And progress is being made on a number of fronts to mitigate the impacts and ensure the success of the entire building. So those collaborative conversations have led to new operational agreements for trash management to make it easier to operate and present the experience we want around the center. Vecino is now providing security staff through during overnight hours at great expense for the housing. We're working on operationalizing the condo association and formalizing the shared maintenance agreements, Conference Center and Vicino have added security cameras. The city's also working on security cameras for the garage. City crews and the DIA are doing additional cleaning of the shared outdoor spaces, including the garage. We've installed trash receptacles and dog waste bag dispensers and signage. Vicino fixed the front door of the residential building, and other ingress areas are being fixed to ensure that non-resident access to the building is limited to the people who are supposed to be there. So those are a few examples of things that are happening. Like I said, people are meeting like in real time to address these issues on an ongoing basis and make sure that the project delivers on its promises, both in terms of the housing project and the conference center. And I know that Kathy Taylor, the GM of the conference center, and Suzanne Smith-Jablonski are planning on attending the Housing and Economic Development Committee meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So there'll be another opportunity. They're going to give a lot more in depth and be prepared to answer your questions as the boots on the ground folks working on this.
Thank you. And thanks for letting me put you on the spot there. Deborah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a kind of off-the-wall suggestion for a way that the conference center and the kitchen and the farmers market might be able to work together. When we go to these NISAC conferences, one of the more popular events that they have is this Taste of New York reception. And I'm wondering if the conference center might offer, in connection with its programming, a taste of Tompkins County that would allow these conference goers to experience the food that is prepared in the kitchen, that's provided by our farmers market vendors, maybe get a little marketing for our local businesses.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll be happy to bring that back to ASM and the LDC. I actually organized a conference there as a volunteer conference organizer. I can't believe I agreed to help again after doing it in 2018.
Well,
but we
you've
brought
got
the
that asked for sucker on your forehead.
I can't get out of it. We brought the New York Upstate American Planning Association conference here, and so I had a chance to like experience the menu and make menu choices. And a lot of the choices are very much like we selected for lunch the Finger Lakes Farmers Market lunch, and it was all local produce and sort of branded that way too. So that's very much in line with what they are trying to do there. Thank you.
Well, I think it would provide a nice showcase for our local food vendors.
I think that's a great idea. I'm hungry. Yeah.
I know they did that at the Grow New York event as well. They had a lot of the New York and local featured.
And the beverages too.
Yes, Gimme was there. That was great.
Okay, well, as I said, thank you for coming in and sharing with us. That's great news and some really positive stuff going on. Oh, Dougson.
After your first year, maybe half year, is the operating loss about what you expected, better, worse?
Oh, great question. So I always have to be careful because I can go into the weeds and into the details very quickly and then eyes glaze. But the short answer to your question is yes, we are about where we expected to be. There have been some additional costs related to the things I was just talking about. We opened later than anticipated, which of course there's less revenue for that particular calendar year coming in. But we were able to adjust calendars forward in terms of when we switched over from the pre-operating budget to the operating budget. You know, the LDC board has their eye on the ball with this too. And the city also has our financial oversight committee. And so there's a lot of checks and balances and opportunities along the way to make course corrections if needed. But so far we're about on track. And on the revenue side, the room tax continues to perform ahead of our conservative revenue projections. In fact, we opened the center last year with double the reserve balances in the capital replacement reserve and the primary operating reserve, as was articulated in the multi-party agreement that the county saw and we all saw. So we're starting from a position of strength. We made our first bond payment last year. So things are going well on that front.
And 2025 bookings look good? 2025 bookings look good?
Yes, but ask that of Kathy tomorrow, or I can get that information for you in more detail. We just got a lead calendar. I can't remember off the top. Yeah, there's a lot of prospects. The CVB is also working really hard, to sell business out, 2-3 years. So come and do a tour, kick the tires if you haven't.
Okay. Anybody else? This is good news. Thanks for the update. And more to come, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I do not have a chair's report. Staff report for the Development Corporation.
I do not have a staff report.
Okay. We have minutes from December 11th, 2024. Could I get a motion on the minutes? Ann moves, Deborah seconds. Questions or comments on the minutes? All right, I'll call the roll. Todd? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I have to abstain again because I wasn't present.
All right, Duxon?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So those are approved. Is there any other business to come before the Development Corporation today? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll just do a show of hands on that one. That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Take care.